It is almost March, which means it's almost time for Realmathon, and that means that we need to start prepping. Today, I have a bunch of books for you to add to your TBR, especially if you are on Team Monarchs and you need some help with the bonuses. Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brie and this is For Positiva. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, hello, welcome to BookTube. This is the 4th edition of Realmathon, or Realm of the Readathon. It is created by my dear friend Cassidy over at Covers with Cassidy. I will leave her announcement linked down below, but here are the basics. It is a competitive team-based readathon where 4 teams, 4 families are fighting to become the head of the pack, the leader of the realm, and we will be reading books throughout the month of March to gain points for our team or attack the other teams with the points. It is one of my favorite readathons every single year. Cassidy does an amazing job coming up with the teams and the theme every single year. Every time it's a little bit different, and I will say this one is probably one of my favorites. I am one of the hosts for Team Monarchs, and we control the government. We might be a little bit corrupt. Might be. Honestly, all 4 of the families are, let's be honest. It's kind of mafia inspired, but we do have the ability to control the minds of the citizens. It has been said that while others are playing checkers, we are playing chess. And so because of that, one of the bonus prompts for our team specifically is a book that involves politics in some way. And while every book is political, reading is political, I have a bunch of books where politics do take a prominent place without it feeling boring or dry or uninteresting. Trust me, as you look at these, you're gonna be like, ah, I see, and now I wanna pick this up. So, get out your pen, get out your paper, get out Goodreads, Storygraph, add these books to your TBR. One of the things that drew me into Romantasy specifically is that a lot of times those books do have political backdrops. There are court politics, there is royalty, there is a rebellion, something like that. And so I have a lot of Romantasy recommendations, but I do also have a lot of fantasy recommendations, some romance recommendations, some thriller. You have a little bit of everything here, so stay tuned. Also, let's use the comment section down below as further recommendations. So if you have more ideas, ones that I may not have gotten to, put them down in the comments below as we are going along. I have a ton of recommendations for you. This is definitely a buzzword of mine and definitely a reason why the Monarchs fits me as a team so well. I also am going to link down below Jen's video on this. She also did a recommendation video for the Monarchs. She is my other co-host of the Monarch team. I am so excited to be hosting with her. So like I said, I will link her video down below. We are going to read all of the good books in March. We are going to have a very lengthy TBR, and you know, most of these books we will probably have to continue on into future months because there's only so many hours in a day. But let's start with the Romantasy recommendations. Like I said, I have a ton of recommendations and I'm not going to be going into a lot of depth about these, but I have talked about a lot of them in videos. If there is a recent video, I'll link it up above or in the description below to give you guys a little bit more information about it, but everything's on Goodreads and Storygraph. So I'll just kind of give you the hook today, and you can look it up if you're interested. The entire Blood and Ash series is very political. Both the original series and the prequel series. There are court politics in this. There are warring factions. This is definitely political. I think I actually like the prequel series a little bit more, but it's the only one that I've gone farther in. I've only read the first 2 books in the first series and 3 in the prequel series, but I like them both. Court of Blood and Bindings is a really interesting Romantasy with a color-based magic system. So red means something and yellow does something else, blue does something else. It's very, very interesting. But this is a captive romance. We have a fae murderer who catches our main character using magic when she should not be. And so she is taken to the Fae Isles. The treacherous Crimson Court is, you know, raining down judgment on those that she sees fit. She's not good. Let's just put that out there. And then we have what is called the Silent Death. He's supposed to be his mother's loyal servant, but he is tortured. He's a tortured soul, and we love that about him, honestly. And so throughout the series, we are trying to overthrow the mother of Feykind. So definitely political here. This one is a little bit of a stretch, but we can't have a recommendations video without talking about House of Bane and Blood. So this is a more mafia-inspired duology, but there is politics at play in the fact that capitalism is politics. So our main character's family runs the train line. They have control of that, which means that they have control of the commerce. She ends up having to go into this arranged marriage because they are trying to, you know, keep the power within the family. Then we have a serial kidnapper that has been ravaging the streets, sowing dissent between the descendants and the natives. And there is a war that is just brewing right under the surface as we go through this first book. If this is your first video that you ever watched on my channel, hi, hello, this is my favorite book of all time. I own 4 copies of this. I will push this on everybody. I actually think there might be a small buddy read happening in the Monarchs chat, or there's a bunch of people that are going to be trying to read this in March. So if you would like to be one of them, come join us. Then we have The Serpent and the Wolf by Rebecca Robinson. This is a very slow burn political fantasy that has some romance in it. This is an arranged marriage, or a political marriage. She is actually assigned to marry this other person from her brother, due to like magic reasons. I don't want to spoil it. I'm like trying to be very vague, but essentially the power will still stay in the family if she is married off to this person. Again, it's all political. Anytime you see something like a political marriage or an arranged marriage, something like that, 9 times out of 10 is going to be political in some way. This one has a really expansive world, and I will say that it's a very info dumpy, especially at the beginning of the book, but as we go along, we really get to know the characters, we really get to know their motivations, and this was a really, really strong debut, but just know it does have a lot of info dump at the beginning. Let's get a couple of very popular books out of the way. I don't need to sell you on them. You've heard about these books, I promise you, but they will get you those bonus points. Quicksilver by Callie Hart is dealing with a revolution and a brewing war. Fourth Wing, literally about a war college and a revolution, and the call is coming from inside the house. Spark of the Everflame, again, another revolution, a rebellion, but also dealing with politics and gods and descendants, those kind of things. A lot of buzzwords on this. Then we have A Court That's Cruel and Lovely. Obviously, if you have any type of royalty in the book, it's going to be political in some way, but this is literally about trying to take over a kingdom, take over a government from the inside. She literally infiltrates as one of the queen's ladies and, you know, takes it down from the inside, literally. And then we have The Hurricane Wars by Thea Guanzon, and then the sequel, A Monsoon Rising, which I have not read yet, might be a March book. But this is an enemies to lovers. They have opposite abilities and they are pushed together in this war. Let's move on to some more fantasy forward stories. This one still does definitely have a romance, and I think had it have been written a year later, it probably would have been classified as a romantasy, but Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in a new series by Cassandra Clare. It's not related to the City of Bones Mortal Instruments universe. There we go. It's been a long time since I've read those. This is completely separate. It's definitely for fans of like City of Brass, that aspect, that vibe to it. But in this book, we have our main character who is the sword catcher. So with some illusion magic, he actually becomes the body double for the prince. And so then if someone tries to assassinate the prince, he's really just assassinating the body double. And then we have our other main character. She is a physician, but she has magical abilities, and she has been ostracized from the rest of the kingdom because of those abilities. So her group of people have to kind of be pushed aside, and they're not supposed to be performing magic. However, the magic heals people, and, you know, weirdly enough, the prince needs to be healed for reasons, definitely political reasons. This is one that was one of my favorite books of 2023, and The Ragpicker King, which is the second book in this series, comes out on March 4th. So if you wanted to like continue on with that, that'd be a perfect little series binge for you. Another one that also has a new book in the series coming out that is very political, The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. This is a dystopian story. Like, it's kind of fantasy, I guess. It's dystopian, where the capital has split up the country into 12 districts, and each district has a person or two people that come to compete in the Hunger Games, fight to the death kind of thing. And then there's a revolution. I don't really need to sell you on the Hunger Games, you know what that is, but Sunrise on the Reaping comes out March 18th, I believe, is the release date, and so that one definitely I will be picking up in March. If you are the type of person who wants to just binge a series straight through, I have a couple of completed trilogies for you. The first one, Fireborn by Rosaria Munda. So this is a 3-book series. This is kind of like Fourth Wing, but it's got a lot more fantasy in it. The dragons don't have quite the same like personality that they do in Fourth Wing, but if you like the politics, the revolution, the world building of Fourth Wing, then Fireborn might be your next go-to favorite series. It is young adult, but it definitely skews on the side of like upper YA, and I think it's a really good bridge for people that read YA that kind of want to try more fantastical, more high fantasy stories, and it is a completed trilogy. Then we have Ashes of the Sun by Django Wexler. This is another completed trilogy. This is a fantasy sci-fi blend, and it's always been sold to me as gay fantasy Star Wars, which I think is a really accurate description of it. Now, as we go along, especially as you get into the third and final book, the world definitely expands beyond that, but as we start in our first book, we have two main characters. They are brother-sister, and they are on opposite sides of the rebellion of the Empire. So we have Maya, who was taken as a young child to be raised as a soldier for the Empire, and then her brother Geir, who is trying to fight the Empire to save his sister. And so we have two central characters who are our point of views. They have their own little groups within their point of view chapter, so there are more than two characters in this book, but we are following two separate sides. This, I think, is a very accessible fantasy story for those of you that may be wanting to get into epic high fantasy, because it's easy to wrap your head around two points of view and two sides of a story. So if you are new to fantasy, this is a great one to pick up, and very political. And then a couple more that might be a step up from that, but still all-time favorite books for me. City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is again another completed trilogy, and then there is a novella, like short story collection that goes with it that kind of adds to the world. Would be a perfect addition to the Gala of Peace weekend happening in the middle of the month. This is Egyptian based magic system. The story starts out in Cairo, but then it goes on to the City of Brass, which is our fictional world. So we have Nari, who is a con woman. That's basically the best way to put it. But then she summons a djinn. And then things happen from there. Obviously, she has a lot more power than she thought she did, and ends up getting used by the Empire. And if you really like military fantasy, which has a ton of politics in it because literally war, The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Another completed trilogy. This is a very heavy series, very heavy book. There's some very serious subject matter in this, so if you need trigger warnings, please check those out. But this is such an excellent story, and it is in the backdrop of the Opium Wars, and so it definitely is influenced by that, but it is magical, and it has a magical twist to it, which I just think is so phenomenal. R.F. Kuang is probably the smartest person I've ever known to exist. I don't know her, but like, you know, that exists on this planet. She is so smart in how she writes her books, and how it's so seamlessly, like, we have social commentary just so seamlessly tied into a fantastical, magical story. Listen, chef's kiss. Anything she writes, it's golden. A couple of other fantasies that are self-published that I absolutely love, that are very political. A Touch of Light by Tiago Abdallah. This is 3 points of view, and it is about two different kingdoms, one that celebrates life and one that celebrates death. And so obviously they are at war. They are at odds because their literal beliefs are completely different. There are 2 books in this series that are out, as well as a prequel novella. So again, great for that Gala of Peace. And then The Fall Is All There Is by C.M. Kaplan. This is about 4 quadruplets that are trying to take the throne because there is no apparent heir. They're all quadruplets, there's no line of succession. And so they are backstabbing each other. There is a lot going on in this book. And then the sequel, The Diplomacy of the Knife, comes out the end of February. So again, a series you could binge a little bit. You're like, these are great suggestions, Brie, but I am not really a fantasy reader, and I'm not sure that Realmathon is the time to start that. My reading tastes are more of the contemporary variety. Don't worry, I got you. Let's talk about some romances. Listen, there are a ton of like presidential and also royal romances, so any of it there probably is going to have some politics in it. For example, The Princess Trap by Talia Hibbert. This is about a woman who ends up making out with this guy in an alley, you know, thinking it's just kind of a fun time as we are leaving the bar. Come to find out he's a prince. Oops. And the paparazzi found him. And so, because of that, for political reasons, they have to get fake engaged, fake married. It's going to be mutually beneficial. She's going to be able to get her work off the ground. He's going to be able to get the paparazzi and his family off his back. But obviously, fake engagement means real feelings. But this is very much like a Genovian land. So if you liked The Princess Diaries and you want that but grown up, here you go. And then if you look outside and you think this world is a dumpster fire, I would like some hope. Might I introduce you to Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This book was written after the 2016 election. So it is very much a fan fiction of the United States, let's be honest. It is about the son of the President of the United States and the Prince of Wales? I believe it's Wales. Somewhere over there on the other side of the ocean. Anyways, they have to become friendly because the paparazzi kind of saw them get into a tuffle, and so they think that the two countries are at odds because the two boys are at odds. And so they have to become friendly, they have to become friends, and then they become more than that. And it is very cute, very sexy, and it's very much a hopeful look at the United States, a very different take on it, as it were. And it's one of those things that, like, if you are having a bad time with the current state of affairs, this might be a good escape from reality for a little bit. Now let's go a little bit darker, a little bit spicier in our romance recommendations. First up, we have Katie Roberts. Now, she has two series that I would say are definitely political. So this is the Wicked Villains series. This is Desperate Measures. This is the Jafar and Jasmine retelling, but there is an underlying political scheme that is happening throughout all of these books, so I would definitely count it. And then this one is like straight up political. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling, and like all of the Greek gods have their own little story, their own romance, but essentially in this world we have the 13, and so Zeus or Hades or Poseidon, all of those Greek gods are not specific people, they are political positions, and so in each of them we are dealing with the politics of the world. The reason why I would say that both of these are political is this one and this one are in the same world. In fact, we have some Hades crossover in the second book specifically, but there are definitely political aspirations, political influences in both of them. This one is just like more politically based. This is a completed series, so I believe there's 6 books and then a novella of short stories. This one is still ongoing, and let me tell you, the macro plot, the political aspect of this plot is just getting more and more intense, more and more like serious, and the world is getting huge. Let me tell you, it's not just a little cute romance. If you are a fantasy reader, especially if you have jumped into Romantasy and you're wanting to continue on that bridge to romance, this actually might be a great series for you because of this overarching plot and the politics and the world building outside of the actual romance. And then if you have already read the Wicked Villains series, but you want more twisted tales, more villainous stories, Emily McIntyre wrote a whole series. This one I think is probably the only one I could truly say is political. This is Scarred. It is a Lion King retelling, which is technically just a Hamlet retelling, but it is very political. We are vying for a throne, for a crown, and so there's definitely politics at play. I've only read 3 of the ones in her series. Hooked is a Peter Pan retelling, and this one might be a little bit of a stretch to say there are politics. It's more like mob boss mafia type. And then we have Crossed, which is the other one that I have read from her, and this is a Hunchback of Notre Dame retelling. So there's a little bit of politics, but this is mostly like a priest romance. And then I have talked about this series a ton, okay, so I don't need to sell you on this again, but American Queen, the new Camelot trilogy by Sierra Simone, is literally about the president and the first lady and the vice president, and in a fun throuple. This has a lot of politics to it. This is, if you liked the show Scandal but you want more of that, that's sexier, that's this series. That is this series. Definitely check the trigger warnings on this because there are some dark subject matter, some commentary that is talked about. So go into that knowing that, specifically the second book. Lastly, I have some thrillers with kind of a sci-fi element to them. They are kind of near future dystopian stories, which are always going to lean very heavily political. So I have one here that I have read, and when I tell you that you need to be in a good headspace for this one, it is so near future dystopian that you could actually be looking at transcripts of what's happening in Congress today. And then I have two that are on my immediate TBR that may actually happen during March. So the one that I have read is Red Clocks by Lenny Zumas. This is The Handmaid's Tale, but scarier because it is so near future. I remember reading this book as a baby booktuber. I took a picture of one of the pages. I sent it to my sister and she's like, is that a book or is that the transcript of today's Congress? Like, that's how real it is. It follows 5 different women where abortion and in vitro fertilization, any type of reproductive care has essentially become illegal. And so we are following 5 different women who have to deal with that. It is very harrowing. So please, please, please be in a good headspace if you pick this up. But so powerful. And then 2 that are on my TBR, we have the Chain Gang All-Stars. This is a commentary on the prison system, so definitely political, and essentially our prisoners have to do a gladiator fight to the death kind of thing. I'm not really sure, but like everyone talks about this and I don't think I've ever heard anybody say anything negative about it. So definitely on my TBR. And then I have one more book in this series by John Mars. I kind of read them out of order on accident, but you could probably stretch and say that all of the books in the series are political, but this one specifically is. So The Marriage Act by John Mars. This is about a right-wing government who believes that it has the answer to society's ills, the Sanctity of Marriage Act. It's actively encouraging marriage as the norm, punishing those who choose to remain single. 4 couples are about to discover just how impossible relationships can be when the government is monitoring every aspect of our personal lives. That sounds terrifying. Definitely one that I have on my TBR and I would love to get to in March. Okay, so that is a lot of different genres, a lot of different books that you can add to your TBR, but what did I miss? What should I be adding to my TBR this month? And if you're not feeling chatty, as we are Team Monarchs, put a butterfly in the comments below. Or I guess you could put your own emoji, your own team's emoji. It's fine, we're all friends here, but we will fight you next month. If you want to know more about this readathon, I'm gonna leave Cassidy's announcement video right here on the screen for you. You can click on it and go there. She has explained it so well, and I highly encourage you to check it out. Also, she has some gorgeous merch, okay? The bookmarks, stunning. That is all I have for you today. If you are new here and you have not yet subscribed, there's a little button that you can do so down below the video. If you'd like to hang out with me more, the links to my Instagram, Goodreads, Twitter, and my Patreon are linked in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!